Formula One's 2026 revolution has already exposed something crucial that most fans completely missed after the Australian Grand Prix. While everyone focused on the headline result, George Russell converting pole into victory for Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team, the real shock was buried inside the data. Mercedes wasn't just fast. It was 0.785 seconds clear of its closest rival in qualifying, a gap that instantly echoes the early dominance of the hybrid era. But here's the twist. Telemetry shows that in the corners, the Scuderia Ferrari SF26 was actually 0.2 faster between turns 9 and 10. One team dominates the straights, the other owns the corners. And with the brand new 50/50th hybrid power system reshaping energy deployment, the question isn't just who won Melbourne, the real question is far more dangerous. Who has truly solved Formula One's 2026 energy puzzle first? For months, the Formula One paddock lived inside a cloud of speculation about the massive 2026 regulation overhaul. New chassis philosophies, radically simplified aerodynamics, and most importantly, a completely redesigned hybrid power unit where electrical energy now contributes nearly half of the total output. That shift alone rewrote the entire competitive equation. When the lights finally went out at the Australian Grand Prix, the first real answers emerged. Mercedes delivered a devastating statement. Front row lockout, race control, and the fastest car on the grid, yet the numbers beneath the surface revealed something far more complicated. Ferrari's cornering speeds were astonishing, with drivers like Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc trading blows with Russell during the opening laps. But there's a catch, and it's the part the teams aren't eager to discuss publicly. In qualifying trim, Ferrari reportedly suffered battery deployment irregularities, meaning the car could not sustain full electrical power on the straights without clipping. Meanwhile, Mercedes' system delivered longer and more stable deployment windows. That difference alone could explain the half-second qualifying deficit mentioned by Ferrari boss Frederick Vasseur. So, what if Melbourne didn't reveal the fastest car, but simply the team that understands the new energy management war better than anyone else? Before we move on, make sure to smash that like button and hit subscribe so you never miss out on any of our latest videos. Because what we're about to uncover about the 2026 power shift might completely change how you see this season's championship battle. To understand why the opening race of the 2026 season shocked so many engineers inside the paddock, you have to start with the technical revolution hidden inside the power unit regulations. For the first time in modern Formula One, the hybrid system delivers nearly 50% of the car's total power output, dramatically increasing the importance of energy harvesting, battery deployment, mapping, and software control. This isn't just an engine anymore. It's effectively a mobile energy management system running at 300 kilometers per h, and that's where the early advantage of the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team becomes impossible to ignore. Look at the telemetry from the Melbourne race through the high-speed sections, particularly the exit of turn 6 leading into the acceleration zone toward turn 9. George Russell consistently gained 3 to 4 kilometers per h in terminal speed compared with the Ferraris behind him. That doesn't come from drag reduction alone. It indicates a longer sustained electrical deployment window, meaning Mercedes battery software is able to deliver power for a longer period before reaching the dreaded clipping point where energy reserves run dry. In the hybrid era, clipping is everything. Once a car reaches the end of its electrical deployment allocation, the driver suddenly loses a significant percentage of available power. That's why the Mercedes looked unstoppable on the straights. Its deployment map allowed Russell to maintain acceleration deep into the straight, while rivals began losing hybrid assistance. But now, look at the other side of the data. Between turns 9 and 10, the fast directional change where aerodynamic stability and chassis compliance matter more than raw power, the Scuderia Ferrari SF26 was consistently gaining around 0.2 of a second. That's a massive advantage for a single corner sequence. According to driver feedback, the Ferrari chassis delivered extraordinary mechanical grip and rotation, particularly in medium-speed corners. Even Lando Norris admitted after the race that Ferrari might actually have the best overall car in terms of pure cornering performance. So, how is Mercedes still winning? The answer lies in something Ferrari deliberately gambled on: a radically compact turbo architecture. Ferrari engineers opted for a smaller turbocharger unit compared with many rivals. This design improves throttle response and traction on corner exit because the turbo spools up faster. The result? Exceptional drive out of slow corners. Something that explains why Ferrari repeatedly matched Mercedes in the early laps despite the straight line deficit. But there's a trade-off. Smaller turbos generate less sustained airflow at peak load, meaning Ferrari must rely more heavily on electrical deployment to maintain power at high speeds. If the battery system isn't perfectly optimized, the car begins clipping earlier on long straights, and Melbourne's data suggests exactly that happened. Ferrari insiders later admitted that a battery deployment issue during qualifying limited their ability to deploy maximum hybrid power throughout the lap. That alone could explain why Mercedes held a half-second advantage in qualifying pace despite Ferrari's superior cornering speeds. Now, here's where the political dimension enters the story. Works teams, those designing their own engines, appear to have a massive advantage in this new era. Look at the competitive order from Melbourne. Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull Racing all sit at the front of the grid. Each one operates a fully integrated power unit program. Meanwhile, customer teams like McLaren, despite using Mercedes engines, struggled to match the works team's performance. That isn't supposed to happen under the regulations. Officially, all engine customers receive identical hardware and software, but the reality inside Formula One is far more complex. Even with identical components, the integration of the power unit with the chassis, cooling architecture, and battery management systems can create enormous performance differences. In other words, the real advantage comes from knowledge, not hardware. And that's exactly why works teams are thriving. Consider what happened during the race when Ferrari's drivers, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, began pushing harder in the closing stages. With lighter fuel loads and more optimized energy deployment, Hamilton suddenly became the fastest car on track during the final 15 laps. That single statistic changes the narrative dramatically. It suggests that Ferrari's performance deficit might not be structural at all. Instead, it could be a matter of software calibration and energy management, areas that often improve rapidly during the first half of a regulation cycle. Now, compare that situation with McLaren. Just 1 year ago, McLaren finished the 2025 season as the championship-winning powerhouse. Yet, in Melbourne, the team suddenly appeared as the slowest of the top four. The gap between McLaren and Mercedes in qualifying stretched to 0.862 seconds, an enormous margin in modern Formula One. Why? Because the 2026 rules reset the entire aerodynamic philosophy. The previous ground effect regulations rewarded teams that perfected floor aerodynamics and underbody airflow control. McLaren mastered that concept better than anyone by the end of 2025. But the new regulations reduce the influence of those designs and shift more importance toward energy deployment, efficiency, and hybrid integration. And that's a completely different engineering battlefield. Now let's talk about the most fascinating driver storyline emerging from Melbourne: the rise of Andrea Kimi Antonelli. The young Italian delivered one of the most chaotic yet impressive weekends of the entire field. After crashing heavily in FP3 and nearly missing qualifying, Antonelli still produced a lap fast enough to force teammate Russell to dig deeper for pole position. Then came the race. Despite a messy start, Antonelli quietly matched Russell's pace throughout the second stint and even began closing the gap toward the end of the race. That's an extraordinary performance considering the pressure of driving for Mercedes in only his second season. Meanwhile, over at Red Bull, rookie Isaac Hadjar delivered the strongest performance by a teammate to Max Verstappen in years. Qualifying third and briefly threatening the leaders before suffering an engine failure, Hadjar demonstrated that the Red Bull package still possesses serious pace if reliability improves. But the most dramatic collapse of the weekend belonged to Williams Racing. Last year, Williams finished 5th in the constructors' standings and boldly declared that the 2026 regulation reset would be its opportunity to return to the front. Team principal James Vowles even admitted the team abandoned development of its 22.5 car early to focus entirely on the new regulations. And yet, the result was catastrophic. Williams ended the weekend more than half a second slower than the midfield packet once led. Rumors of failed crash tests during the winter forced the team into a heavy redesign, leaving the car overweight and aerodynamically compromised. In the new era where energy efficiency and chassis weight are critical, that extra mass becomes a devastating handicap. Finally, consider the broader competitive landscape. At the end of the 2025 season, the entire field was separated by just 1.245 seconds in qualifying pace. In Melbourne 2026, the spread exploded to 4.087 seconds between first and last place. That's not just a performance gap, it's a signal that the regulation reset has fractured the competitive order, creating clear winners and losers almost overnight. And history tells us exactly where this could lead. When Formula One introduced its last major engine overhaul in 2014, one team, Mercedes, dominated for years before rivals finally caught up. The terrifying possibility now is that the same story might be unfolding again, only this time the battle might not be about aerodynamics or horsepower. It might be about who controls the energy war of Formula One's new hybrid era. So, after just one race, the 2026 Formula One revolution has already revealed a dangerous pattern. Mercedes appears to have cracked the energy deployment puzzle, while Scuderia Ferrari might secretly possess the fastest chassis on the grid. If Ferrari solves its battery clipping problem, the entire championship fight could flip overnight. But if Mercedes continues perfecting its hybrid management, we might be witnessing the birth of another era of dominance. So, what do you think? Has Mercedes already won the 2026 development war, or is Ferrari about to unleash its real performance? Write your opinion in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more explosive Formula One analysis from this channel.